handsome beard. It is State Senator Joe Pittman joining us here this morning. That's the thing I always monitor, is the length of the beard. That's how I know how hard he's been working. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County Contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Well, you and all of your colleagues in the legislature have been working very hard over the course of this last month on one particular topic, but there's much more going on. But that's where we need to start, is on the state budget. Yesterday, sending a letter to your colleague in the House and trying to work out some things with the state spending plan, which is also a state revenue plan. And there's a lot that still has to happen for that to come through, doesn't it?
There is a lot that still has to happen, Todd. But first and foremost, let me be clear that I shaved my beard this morning.
Did you really?
It is trimmed, it is short, and I did that just for you. So, but no, we have a lot of work to do as it relates to the budget. And budget impasses aren't unique to Pennsylvania. The circumstances that brought us to this impasse are quite unique. We found ourselves in a situation where we in the Senate, as a Republican majority, had agreement with the governor, the Democrat governor, on many issues, and one being this PASS scholarship program, which is designed to empower parents to make choices for their children's education. And candidly, it was one very small element of a $45.5 billion budget, $100 million. And there are so many other things in this budget that we've been able to work on, chief among them an increase in the state system higher education allocation. We were able to transfer another $125 million from the state police into the motor license fund to allow for more infrastructure improvements to be made. We increased the EMS reimbursement for Medicaid. We all know the EMS crisis that we're having statewide. That's going to drive $30 or $40 million statewide into that EMS network. And so there's a lot of very good things in this budget, beyond the fact that we're spending $300 million less than what the governor proposed. We're putting $500 million more into our rainy day fund to be prepared for a recession. And we kept the overall growth of spending down to about 3%. On top of that, we've not raised any taxes anywhere. And so this is overall a very, very solid budget. But we have a lot of work to complete. And chief among that is making sure that what is in that budget, that our priorities get implemented properly. And we have to do that through legislation.
One of the things that you heard right after the governor made his move was that he folded so quickly, it must have been in his plans all along. I don't know how you view that, if that's a possibility or not, but just what's your perspective?
I don't buy that. I worked very closely with the governor for, in particular, the month of June to try to help build this overall budget. And he shares our commitment to empowering parents. He truly does. I truly believe that. I can't speak for the governor in terms of where he thought things would land, but I would be hard-pressed to see any elected official go so far out on an issue to take so many barbs from his political base, understanding that the mainstream Democrat Party did not have the same point of view that he had, only to fold, as you put it, on this very, very important issue. I think he tried to make a calculated decision to try to make sure that the state had a budget in place. Candidly, I don't think there was enough thought put into what all the dynamics of putting a budget in place actually mean. You know, he's a brand new governor. The state house has a brand new Democrat majority. We in the Senate Republicans have been building budgets for 40 years. We know how the process works. And I really think there was a healthy amount of naivety on the part of other parties in this process, thinking that one bill just magically fixes our budgetary situation.
Now, Governor Shapiro, of course, he has experience as a legislator, and so you can lean upon that. But when you look at the overall environment of working with him as to working with Governor Wolf, his predecessor, it's an entirely different atmosphere, isn't it?
It is an entirely different atmosphere. The governor and I have very, very deep philosophical disagreements on many things. I am deeply disappointed on the way this budget has unfolded since we left town on June 30th. I think the governor made a significant miscalculation, in my opinion. I feel we had a deal, we had an agreement. He could not deliver that deal with his House Democrat majority. That is the reality. At the same time, we have to figure out how to make sure that divided government works. We cannot have dysfunctional government. And so we have to figure out a way to work together. He is the governor for the next 3.5 years, and we have to recognize and understand that. And so we'll figure out a way to move forward in this process. I can tell you that the members of our Senate Republican caucus have lost a lot of faith in what it means to negotiate in good faith. I've lost a lot of confidence in what that process could look like going forward. But we're going to have to figure out a way to rebuild and start over.
All right. Senator Joe Pittman with us this morning. I want to go back to the state system of higher education. Last year was basically a life raft that you threw out to the state system. A lot of money committed, and it took a lot of convincing, in my opinion, last year in order to make that happen. This year, more money given to the state system of higher education.
Yes, not as much in the aggregate, but what I think we're able to do is build beyond that life raft, as you put it, and actually stabilize the system. What the budget calls for is a 6% increase in the state system subsidy among the schools. It also has a one-time allocation for Penn West, which is Clarion, Edinburgh, and CalU, and that one-time allocation is designed to retire debt in that new university to bring their operating expenses down to keep them more competitive. And all of that's predicated on not increasing tuition. I've made it very clear to the chancellor, I've made it very clear to Dr. Driscoll and anybody involved within the state system, including APSCUF, that we cannot increase tuition in the state system. I've gone a step further to suggest that we probably need to come up with some mechanism where we actually reduce tuition for out-of-state students to try to bring them into Pennsylvania, because our demographics simply can't support the higher education network that we have in the state. And that goes beyond the state system. If you look at the Pitt branch campus network, the Penn State branch campus network, they're all suffering from enrollment declines.
State-related universities did not make a pledge regarding tuition increases. That was a bone of contention with a lot of folks in Harrisburg.
Well, the state-related universities, it's still an open question in terms of what their appropriation will be. That is one piece that was not resolved in the main budget bill that was passed. So we still have work to do there. The state-relateds, I have obviously less familiarity with their situation. I think that sometimes, particularly Pitt and Penn State, and Temple and Lincoln to a degree as well, have a brand that they sell and they market that gives them a little more latitude to increase tuition rates. I think that is certainly a concern for us. The premise of us providing subsidies to higher education is to make tuition less expensive for in-state students. And obviously, as subsidies go up but tuition goes up, that becomes a problem. And I think the state-relateds are in a bit of a different dynamic than the state system as it relates to that.
Education funding, of course, is always one of, if not the most important thing that we talk about when we get to budget season, when we talk about public education in Pennsylvania. Beyond the private school question, our local school districts suffering a little bit, especially those affected by the power plant, by the waste management decision as well. Those tax revenues are what keep these school systems going, and finding resources these days is really, really difficult.
Well, from a statewide perspective, we were quite generous whenever it comes to funding public education. The basic education increase that we provided was $567 million, a number that's historically high. We also had increases in special education subsidy. And I think that when you look at the increases that our districts received generally, particularly given declining enrollment, they were quite generous. What you're talking about specific to the Homer Center School District and Center Township and Homer City Borough is obviously a huge problem, and it is at the top of my mind. Every day I wake up and I try to figure out what to do with repurposing the Homer City generating station, number one. And number two, this latest news on waste management is just extraordinarily frustrating to me. We're going to be meeting in a couple weeks. My understanding is that there's many years of life expectancy on that landfill. Mm-hmm. And so I don't understand the logic of closing a landfill prior to when it is necessary to close it. We know that landfill only has a limited lifespan. I don't recall exactly what it is, but we have to figure out a way specifically to help the Homer Center School District and Center Township through these two difficult things. And part of that's growing the economy there. And I think the biogas plant that we have just announced is a small step in helping that. But I'm certainly prepared to help them adjust. And beyond that, we have municipal authorities, your sewer authority, your water authority. They're also impacted in this. So I'm prepared to step forward and help them through this transition because I recognize this is a significant game changer for them.
Generating station it's a headache, though, isn't it?
It is a headache, but I am hopeful. The one thing that I have observed is that with the announcement of the closure and the painful situation that is, particularly for the affected employees, that site has value. It has rail access, it has a water supply, and most importantly, it has access to the power grid. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to appreciate that power access to the grid is extremely valuable and extremely important. And so I'm optimistic that there's going to be something new there, that it is going to be reused, and it's going to hopefully be reused in a way that's even better than what we've experienced economically the last 4 or 5 years.
Senator Joe Pittman with us this morning here on Indiana in the Morning. As time goes by so fast, I tell you what.
It does. It does.
We look at things on a regional or even half a state sort of perspective. Does the presence of the Shell plant in Beaver County have any real value to us in Indiana County?
I think time will tell on that. The biggest impact of the cracker plant is twofold. One, it's using the natural resource, natural gas, and the byproducts that come from that. So that further incentivizes the production of natural gas resources. Two, and I think the spinoff is a multi-year situation, but manufacturers will tend to surround themselves around that cracker plant because everything that they produce is a significant byproduct for production of plastics and other materials. And so I do think you're going to see that continue to mushroom out. The district that I now represent includes all of Armstrong County. It includes the city of New Kensington and Westmoreland County. And so that border of my district is getting pretty close to Beaver County. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to see some of that momentum head toward this way, at least in terms of the district I represent.
Couple of moments left with the senator. What are some of the things that you want people to know today as we move into the middle portion of the summer and toward the fall?
What I think we need to know today is that we're going to be okay. We have seen some economic difficulties announced over the last few months, but I'm confident that we're going to see opportunities as well. One of the things that we continually are focused on is broadband infrastructure, and I can't thank Indiana County Commissioners and the Indiana County Planning Office under Byron Stauffer's leadership enough for the investment that they have made in broadband infrastructure. It's so critically important. We're seeing it unfold. It's not as quick as any of us want, and what I've noticed is that the more we expand the infrastructure, the more the demand comes to us. We're seeing a lot of highway infrastructure improvements occurring, not only in Indiana County, but also in Armstrong County in particular. And so we're going to see those types of investments happening. They're going to be positive investments. And I think we've seen a recent uptick in our retail investments. With Dunham's opening at the mall, the Texas Roadhouse announcement, there's a few others that are in the wings. I think that's a pretty positive sign, but we're going to have opportunities. I was out at the airport yesterday, and I was amazed at the number of jets and larger aircraft that came into the airport for various traffic just in the couple hours I was there. It's very impressive, and I think that activity is greater than many people realize.
Yeah, well, that's good news.
Yep.
Very good. Senator, thanks so much for the visit.
Todd, thanks, and let's do a double show here before too long.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
I keep saying, I keep threatening you that we're going to do it. We're going to actually do it.
And I won't shave my beard until we have our next interview. How's that?
For the sake of everybody, then we'll get it on the schedule. It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. CBS Sports brought to you by S&T Bank.